Happy Juneteenth Day, and thank you for making it. And what a wonderful day to actually have a talk on mentorship. The day of emancipation, right? And I think about 159 years ago. So it's just coincidental. But very glad to be here. And again, I don't know much about the Web3 community, but what got me here was the passion for mentorship. The fact that there is a DAO around that topic was very interesting. I had a chance to meet with Scott and one of our good friends and investors. Uli is part of this community. It was Uli that said someday you have to come and speak here. I said okay, that day is today. So I won't go to the boring detail of who I am. I will finish my talk and then you will figure out who I am. Because it's not about what I did before; it's about what I'm going to do from now on. That's what matters. And like you said, I wake up every day to figure out ways to scale mentorship. That's about me, right? Of course, if my mom is here, you can say, yeah, you know, I tell people call me Dr. Ravi if my mom is around, because that way she'll be happy. But otherwise, I focus on mentorship and scaling, and I also wrote a book on it. It's called The Art of Mentoring. I have a few copies that you are welcome to take. So today I will be sharing what I so I'm really glad to be here, and I don't live in SF, but I love SF. But what I like about it is, when you go to every city, it says I love Chicago, I love Boston. But what I liked here is it's not I but we. So it's the true power is in the we. I wonder always why they don't say we there, but this one is what is most important. In fact, we have one of the initiatives I run. It's called the We platform. It's called Women Empowered, where women around the world mentoring other women. So we means a lot to me. So anyway, so I'll start. For you to know me, you have to know what I really care about, what I think about. So one of the things I talk about is this collective. Right? It's our collective human wisdom. It's our collective resources. Is and because I have a PhD in fluid mechanics, I always think about the flow. And I say when our collective wisdom and our resources flow like water, then our people, our communities, and our organizations will grow and thrive. Basically, right? And I also worked in supply chain, and I've also said one of my quotes, you can follow me on Twitter, is the world is not short of resources. There is enough water, enough food, enough money, but we do a very bad job at distributing it. That's the problem. Okay, so we need to do better at distributing. And I've written about the mountain, for example, right? About what we can learn from the mountain. Mountain is the entity that receives the water first from the rains, but it doesn't keep all of it. If it does, it will crumble under the weight of the water. It keeps whatever it needs for nourishing whatever plants and trees are on the mountains, and let's go the rest. That's why when we go to Yosemite, we take pictures of the waterfalls. Imagine if the water never flowed, then there's no fun anymore. So, so the entity that gives is always the one that's beautiful. The entity, I always say, it is the giver that is missed, not the taker. If you are the receiver, only the Amazon truck guy will miss you. But if you are the giver, the entire neighborhood will miss you. What happened to this guy? Every Saturday morning he's out with cakes and chocolates. Where is he this morning? So be the giver. Let people miss you. So the core idea came from this research I studied about the world of free movement. If only there were no borders, if only people could work wherever their skills are most valued, I believe the world's GDP would be $78 trillion richer, right? And and the reason is actually what people said, what the economists said is it is the potential gains are so good that you can actually bribe people to make it happen. But we are in a world right now where we are drawing more boundaries. We are building more walls, right? So what I said here is, I said, if not 78 trillion richer, it would be super impactful if we created what I called an open borders for wisdom, right? So I want to show you something. This is a song that if I'm down, I play this. With the volume here. Is it playing? Okay, maybe it's mute, but you know what I'm talking about. How many of you play the song? The Imagine song, right? Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. So this is a song I'm actually writing. Imagine that there are no silos among us. That our collective wisdom is available to anyone, anywhere. So John Lennon is someone I respect. So today, the song you're going to sing here from me is the version of the John Lennon song. Of course, he sounds different when he sings. I'm going to sing the John Lennon version of in my voice. So whatever I'm sharing, it's not rocket science. It's mentorship. I believe you run a mentoring program. Paul mentioned his daughter runs a mentoring program at USF. That's great. All of us should be doing mentoring programs. Why not? 8.5 billion people, right? That's how we thrived as a human race because we cared for each other, right? That's the whole entity here. So that's what I said. Now, how did it all begin? Nicole told me, Ravi, please tell our audience how you got here. Because here I am, I have a PhD in fluid mechanics. I worked on the 787 Dreamliner doing supply chain work. I have engineering patents. Suddenly, I got thrown into this mentorship world because I missed death. This was the second time I missed. First time, if you're curious, I can tell later. But it was an accident that didn't happen. It was 1.2 seconds away from 155 of us vanishing from the planet. Luckily, that day my plane did not take off. That's why we got saved, and it's all in the news. A few years ago. But my mission did take off that day. I was on that plane into the Indian president's helicopter. So what annoyed me, since you asked me, what annoyed me was, first of all, we were saved, great, and next day in the morning, everybody talked about President Pratibha Patil saved, and I said, how come nobody said Ravi got saved? Duh! I mean, I have a PhD by then. I did the 787 Dreamliner. I have engineering patents, but nobody cares. Nobody cares. What's important is significance. What's important is what you have done. Of course, she's the president, great, uh, you know. But so that's why it was a wake-up call. And after that incident, I started thinking. I always believe that today I came to San Francisco, from Evergreen, San Jose. After my talk is over, I have one more meeting after this, and I'm going to head back to San Jose. So I come from India, so India is full of gurus. I have a guru as well. And once he told me, Ravi, we come to this planet like that. We come here for a purpose. And then once your purpose is done, get out. Why consume? Why consume extra food and why occupy space? So that's how I felt that there was an unfinished project. Imagine if I came to San Francisco and I forgot about this presentation. Somebody will remind me, right? I felt like that. There was an unfinished job. The job I'm doing today is what I feel is for which I came here, for which I was sent back to the planet, in a matter of 1.2 seconds. So let me start with a personal story. Around that time, I had a chance to meet this gentleman, Mr. Srikanth, and he was very poor from a very modest background. Um, his parents did not own any property or anything like that. He was extremely driven regardless. I met him when he was 16 years old. He was a very actively known sort of youth leader in India. Because I was giving a talk at one of the universities there on igniting genius in youth. But the other challenge was he's blind by birth. So he comes up to me and says, sir, I want to prove myself. Can you help me get into MIT? I still remember I asked him, please spell what MIT stands for. Because there are many MITs. Right? But he was referring to the one in Cambridge. So fast forward, I started mentoring him. He graduated from MIT in 2013 with honors, and is now an entrepreneur, very successful CEO, employing more than 60% of people who are like him. Now he's not running an IT shop; he's running a manufacturing company, and he was able to essentially modify all the machines. And last month there is a new movie about his story. It's called Srikanth. So that's what we that is what mentoring is. If you are really encapsulate in just this one story, it is seeing other people flourish in their own garden. I don't know Srikanth's garden. I mean, I even if I close my eyes for like 5 seconds, we get lost. But his entire life is like that. So I will never know his garden. But to see him thrive is really what mentorship is. So you stay where you are. I've talked about lighthouse. Lighthouse stays where it is, but it gives direction to the ship so they don't collide. Our job is to be the lighthouse for somebody. And we have the biggest lighthouse, the sun, that guides all of us, right? So that's why in Hindus, first thing in the morning, we wake up, we look at the sun and pray. Why? Without him, nothing nothing runs, right? So anyway, so um, with that experience of that aircraft incident and me incidentally meeting Srikanth, mentoring became really what my profession was. So I left Boeing and said, "This is it." It's not easy to start a mentoring company, by the way. Supply chain company, yes. Crypto company, yes. AI company, now people throw money at you. Mentoring company, what? What is this? That's what you do on a Sunday morning after you have breakfast and just to feel good about, and so that God is kind to you. So I had investors say that, really, you can actually build a tech company. What I did. So that's when I said, whatever I do, I'm going to do something that will impact a lot of people. And I wrote a book, and I started an initiative with Nasdaq that actually got my picture on the Nasdaq tower in New York. So that was a very big moment, because ultimately, you have to keep looking at the problems around you. You don't have to solve all the problems, but whatever problems come in front of you, just try to solve them. This was in the middle of the pandemic when a lot of entrepreneurs who are non-white were having difficulty. So we said people of all colors, all backgrounds, whatever, should have a mentor. So Mentor Makers is live, and Nasdaq surprised me with this picture. So let me start with I was asked to share a brief about who I am and what I think about mentoring that everybody knows. But I have, like I said, I have the John Lennon version of Imagine. So I'm going to give you the Ravi version of mentoring, right? All of you will have your own definitions. And I'll talk about MentorCloud, how I took that understanding and actually built a tech company. And I was also asked to share a specific project that we are doing in Arizona to sort of address homelessness. Because ultimately, we're all here with the DAO that we're working with Scott. It is to address the challenge. This problem can be solved. California, I believe, last year spent $60 billion on homelessness. I don't know where all the money went. I was telling Scott, I just need 0.001% of it and we'll solve it. So I feel we can solve it, and I'll talk about it as well. So in my book, when I finish, because I don't come from the HR background, this is something that's come naturally to me. I've had mentors who are really showed me the way throughout my life. And so I define mentor as share what you know, not on Reddit or on some other sites, with the people you care about. This is not broadcasting sort of sharing. It's holding on somebody and saying, hey, who do I care about? And like the example I did for Srikanth, right? And for the mentee side, it is about trusting the wisdom of your mentor. Whoever is said, hey, I'm there with you, you should trust that person. But stopping at trust is not enough. You have to take action. If my mentor says, Ravi, you should read this book, I should read the book and go back to him and say, this is what I learned. If somebody says, Ravi, you should change your pitch, I should change and go back and tell him. So action is where the important thing is. So I define mentoring in 4 words. So that because I speak all over the world, I want to simplify it. Share and care for the mentor, trust and act for the mentee. It's not enough to say, oh, my mentor is amazing. Doesn't mean anything to the mentor or to you unless you take action. Okay? So I would like you to you think about people. Some of you have notebooks. So think about people in your life who you would call your mentor. Those people who really were there at a very critical point in your career, probably multiple points in your career. So let's take 2 minutes, and I would like some of you to actually share those names. We'll bring those people into the room here. We'll bring them here. If they're alive or not alive, doesn't matter. We'll bring them into the room here. So just take a minute and think about those people who held your hand, who were there, who shared and cared for you as the mentor, and you trusted in them and you took action. I see some people writing down some names. If you have a name, You want to bring it up, Anne Marie? Anyone? Okay, she's talking about Julia. Okay, great.
Sorry about that.
Okay, Julia is now here. Good.
I I said one of my mentors that popped into my head immediately was Julia, who was my mentor when I was a baker's apprentice.
Yeah, great. How did she impact you?
She impacted me in her model, how it was different. It was a cooperative bakery,
Mm.
and she employed any and everyone and just brought people in, and it was such a warm, calm, peaceful, collaborative environment. It was not a top down. It was a great place to work.
Fantastic. And how long ago was it?
This was about 4 or 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Wonderful. So, and then we have one person like that.
George Chestnut, he was the father of what they call relative strength, which is pitting one stock against another, and the past performance predicts the future performance. NVIDIA would be a great example of that. But he taught me how to chart the market 40 years.
40 years ago. My goodness, look at that. It's still alive in your memory.
And when I started managing money, I didn't know what to do because I was a stock salesman. And I finally let him manage money. And he gave me the methodology that has taken me through the last 26 years, 28 years of managing money. So I'm thrilled with him, and I'm thrilled with what he taught me to do.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Two
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, I'd like to just feature a mentor of mine from 10 years ago, Jonathan Lee Chok. He's a Chinese Filipino man that had a big heart to galvanize his community of educators and teachers to make sure that the kids in this garbage dump named Tondo could all go to school basically for free.
Wow.
And so in the Philippines, he just is well known as somebody that just wanted every kid to learn, doesn't matter where they're from. And so he would put me to work making the school, helping consult with families, making sure that they could get their kids over to the school.
Fantastic. Jonathan, right?
Yeah, Jonathan.
Amazing.
I have a mentor, well, my first mentor was Reverend Dr. J. Alfred Smith, and he was a pastor. And I remember as a child, I would go see him, and he would come around across his desk, kneel down and pray with me. And before we even have a conversation, then he'll go back around the desk and then say, "How can I help you?" I remember one time I was not living for God, and I was going to the service, and he said, it was amazing because it's like he had eyes behind his head. Every time that I would try to sneak past him when his back was turned, he would grab me. And he asked me one time, "Could you pray for me?" And I told him no. And he said, "I'm going to pray for you anyway." And that prayer saved my life.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. God bless you. One more? Okay.
Yeah, I think a mentor for me, Pastor Clint Levine. When I first moved to the Tenderloin 13 years ago, he invested in me. He modeled what it looked like to lead with integrity and humility. He'd go from the boardroom to the sidewalk and be the same man everywhere he went. And I'm eternally grateful. And he really poured into me like a father. So I wouldn't be who I am today without him.
Wow. What a testimonial. Now, I really hope all of us will be that person somewhere that we are being talked about in some other room somewhere. Right? I always tell people if you want somebody to give you a ride to the airport, you should have given a ride to the airport to somebody else. Otherwise, you don't have the right to ask. Right? So I hope your name and what you did for them is also being talked about or at least thought about in some other parts of the country. So great, thank you for sharing. So I'm going to talk about some how I view mentorship. Now this looks like the classroom we are in right now. I call it learning 1.0. Do you have a comment? Okay, she wants to share. Let's bring her mentor also into this room.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, is it necessary if your mentor has to be older than you?
Not at all. Not at all. Because I again in my book I talk about this concept called wisdom asymmetry. In some topics I may know better than another individual. In some topics the other individual knows more than me. That's all mentorship is. This whole idea of having somebody older than you, younger than you, age should not matter. In fact, I learned so much about social media and digital marketing from my daughter. Absolutely fine. So this concept of reverse mentoring, it comes from the HR thinking, right? Reverse. What is so reverse about it? Hey, I need like next month I'm going to Greece. If somebody has gone to Greece before, I'm going to just ask that person, hey, what should I do? Do I need a visa? What currency? Where should I stay? Nothing wrong with it. So think about wisdom asymmetry and learn from anyone. Doesn't matter what age they are. Okay, let's continue. So I call this as learning 1.0, and later on we all know this, because people, all the companies felt it's too expensive to put them in a classroom. So I call this as the learning 2.0. And interestingly, I didn't know I'll be speaking at Web 3. Learning 3.0 is what I call human to human. This is how we thrived as a human race. There were no books, there were no online systems, there were no classrooms. We learned from each other, which is what my technology does, which is what my work does. Let's bring those human to human connections back, because there is a element of wisdom, because humans come with wisdom. Means knowledge in the context of the situation is wisdom. So that's what we want, right? Anybody can tell me how to get to San Francisco airport, but people with wisdom will say don't leave at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Context matters. When you connect people within an organization, within a university, within a company, it is because of the context that's more valuable. And we'll talk again. I do a whole workshop on that. So I define mentoring as a human to human flow of wisdom. Now I use the word H to H because there's also a heart connection. Look at what he said about somebody who treated him like a son. So there is a heart invariably inherently involved in the relationship. It's a human relationship, right? My mentors ask me about how I'm doing, my family, my health, and of course my company, right? So I define mentoring as human to human flow of wisdom, and I see if you do this well, it can be what I call a regenerative force. And I named the company MentorCloud by looking at the real cloud. People thought I'm talking about Amazon or Azure, but I was actually saying this is a cycle, right? Water evaporates, forms a cloud, and the cloud is also represents a collective, and it's also boundaryless. So, can we create a collective repository of wisdom that is boundaryless? Anybody, anywhere can access, and there's a whole article on that. So, I talk about the flow a lot. Our company is all about that flow, and I talked about flow of resources. And I say this: when the flow of blood is ineffective, we all know what happens. Human body gets a stroke, it suffers. When the flow of money is ineffective, economy suffers. And we have seen it many, many, many times in the US, and it's likely to happen again. So, what I view is when the flow of wisdom is ineffective, that there are incredibly smart people, incredibly rich people, incredibly good people in a community, but they don't let it flow in the community suffers. And same with organization. If you have a large organization where there are pockets of wisdom or pockets of experience that is not getting shared with others, then the organization is going to suffer. The popular phrase, people will tend to reinvent the wheel, as they say. It happens. So when we connect people, it is to really make sure that if the expertise is there, just use it rather than try to reinvent. So far, so good. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I believe, if there is one thing to remember, whichever organization you are in, whichever community you are in, make sure that there are mechanisms for what I call the flow of wisdom. And of course, it starts with us, being a mentor. Because whatever we know is going to go underground, and if you are a Hindu like me, it's going to burn into ashes. Doesn't matter. So might as well share it. I always say there is very few things when you share it grows. If I give you my phone, I don't have the phone. But if I give you my wisdom, it's still there with me. That's the beauty of it, right? So start with being mentor someone. Now, uh, again, this is my perspective. Many of you are mentors. You have had mentors, but my perspective is it actually makes you a better leader. In fact, when I hire people in my company, I ask them, "Have you mentored other people?" Because that gives me what their personality is and how they view this idea of growth. And it's also because it actually grows you. I grew as a person, and I wrote an article how my mentee taught me the difference between sight and vision. They are not the same. My mentee does not have an eyesight, but he has an incredible vision. And there are many people in this world who have beautiful eyesight, but zero vision for their life. So he taught me that, and it's really helped me. I
Had you mentored him before the life changing experience where your plane avoided a crash, or did it happen after that?
So it happened after. It happened actually 4 months after that. That's why I believe universe was all concocting this for me. So in 4 months after this accident happened or didn't happen, luckily I met this student. So it was right around that time.
Had you been mentoring before? So you had this heart for mentorship before you met him?
Of course, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because my antenna was up, right? Otherwise, I could have said, yeah, yeah, yeah. So many people come for help. I could have taken his phone number, put it in the pocket, and I would have ignored. But I never say no if I can help. If I can't help, you know, sorry. But sure, sure. Very good comment. Yeah, and it's also an opportunity to be recognized. Like I said, givers get recognized, mentors get recognized, and it's also an opportunity for legacy. Because I always say, just like we do inhale and exhale, life is also about success, significance, right? Inhale, exhale. So early part of your career, it may be all about success, degrees and jobs and promotions. But beyond a point, you have to start thinking about significance. So this is an opportunity to establish your legacy. And guess what? It is an opportunity to pay it forward. Somebody held your hand. It is your basic human duty to hold somebody else's hand. So pay it forward. So with that perspective as to how I view mentoring as a human to human transfer of wisdom, as a great way to build your legacy, to be recognized in a community or in an organization, is to really develop yourself. When I first got into this space, people asked me, Ravi, the mentee is win, but what's it for the mentor? I said, you have never mentored anybody. That's why I asked this question, right? It is transformative to you. You feel more valuable for your existence on the planet, right? Um, Now, let me talk about how I took all of that because I've been asked to specifically talk about the company. And so, MentorCloud is my company, MentorCloud, the, the real cloud. So, I call it growth flywheels because in a community, there are people and there are other people. If you can really create that human to human flow of wisdom, that's what I call as a flywheel. Um, let's take an organization for example. Okay, one of the companies we work with uh, is Marriott International. It's number one in hospitality. So we take their collective expertise of all the subject matter experts, of the mentors and senior leaders, and apply it to various growth cohorts in the company. It could be high potentials, it could be new hires, it could be mid-level leaders or even offshore teams. And when you apply the expertise, the outcomes is they become more productive, they get skills faster because we all know the importance of apprenticeship. It creates a better culture, a culture of oneness, and where people learn and grow. In fact, LinkedIn's latest research says 94% of people said, if I'm learning and growing, I won't leave the company. Right? So it actually directly impacts bottom line because you don't have to keep hiring people. So that's why I call it a flywheel. Create that flywheel in your own company using the gold you already have. You don't need to look outside. You can use the experts inside because any company is what it is because of some good people. So leverage them much more effectively, right? So What we do, we have an AI and ML algorithm. So the key is matching. In fact, I saw an article, right around the time when the accident happened. I saw an article in the news. IBM launches Match.com for mentors. So I said, oh, that's it. So I built a Match.com and I got the Match.com, one of the founders, to invest in the company as well. So we actually do that. It's a Match.com for wisdom of people. And then it's not enough just to match them. Make sure they're happily married. Make sure they're having a good interactions towards their goals, and also guide them. It's very important that you catalyze those interactions and also guide them. That's why I wrote the book. And then when this is happening in a company or in a university, who are those employees who are showing a lot of promise? I call them rising stars. And who are those executives who are doing their job and yet you're spending time to truly build the talent pipeline in the company? I call them impacting mentors. So we have gamification. So we identify them in the company. So we have happy clients on all continents. I mean, when I look at this, as entrepreneurs, we have ups and downs. I'm sure you all know this. And when I'm down, I look at this chart. Oh, I did something. So we have clients on all continents: hospitality, healthcare, universities. Purbright is a group in UK where all the scientists are coming together to prevent a future COVID. We are going to be soon working with United Nations in Kenya, where all the peace activists are going to mentor each other. MetLife is in Chile, in the Mexico. So we are really, really excited about how many use cases have actually come when we said just connect people. Such a ancient human thing to do. Um, so if you remember this chart I showed, my vision was open borders for wisdom. It's actually happening now on MentorCloud. This is the chart that is of people sharing and learning at one company, Merck. So when I travel, when I'm sitting on the airlines, I'm always looking at the flight maps. I always wondered, why can't this line not be an airline but a wisdom line? And it is actually happening. Wisdom flow beyond borders is actually happening now, and we need to do a lot more of it. And similarly, at a company like Marriott, we are able to bring people together across brands because Marriott has about 30 brands. So people across brands can work with each other and across locations. That's what I mean. A cloud is boundaryless, and a cloud is a collective. Any of us is strong when we come together. Otherwise, it's like a wrist, right? So when we come together is where the magic is. So some of the use cases in the organizations, companies use Mentor Cloud for onboarding new hires, especially by having a buddy, so that it is known that if you onboard employees the right way, there is 80% chance they'll stay with you for 5 years. That's the next book I'm writing on how to. I don't even like the word onboarding. It's a HR word. Show them the water cooler, show them the 401k benefits, and show them the restrooms. I call it. I want to use the word integrating. That's what you're doing. You're bringing somebody from the outside into your family, and so integrating new hires. Um, a lot of use cases are around identifying those high potentials and make sure they don't leave. So how do we grow them as future leaders? How do we develop women? And recently we are seeing we want to upskill our people, but I don't want to send them to Udemy or Coursera or edX. I want to put them in front of other mentors so that it's a mentor-led skills development. So somebody is teaching them, and of course we are seeing more and more cases of salespeople mentoring other salespeople. So the sales acceleration happens, and of course reverse mentoring. Even though I don't like it, it's in the vocabulary. People ask me, "Do you do reverse mentoring?" I like that word, but still we do it. It's nothing. It's two people. Doesn't matter. But in their mind, it is somebody elder talking to somebody junior. It doesn't matter. So we work with a lot of nonprofits. For example, US Dream Academy. In fact, it is funded by Oprah Winfrey, and Oprah's mentor, Mr. Wintley Phipps. He told me his story of how Oprah came to him when she was nobody, and he did exactly like that. He said to Oprah, "I will pray with you," and see where she is now. So she funds this US Dream Academy where we are mentoring, K8 to 12 students, and with ASBA, which I'm going to talk about, where we are taking an 100% community and adding mentorship and I'll talk more about it because I've been asked to share that story. And with Nasdaq, remember the my picture on the Nasdaq tower. In 2020, I said everybody's suffering, including all startups in the Bay Area, but there are people who are suffering more because they don't have access. Here, I can call anybody and say, hey, what should I do? So we said any mentor, regardless of their color or background, should have any entrepreneur should have a mentor. So we launched a mentor makers project with Nasdaq Center in San Francisco. Recently, I was in Morocco. We have something called the V platform. We are connecting women entrepreneurs in Morocco with mentors from around the world. And I talked about the UK project. In the academia, it's about alumni engagement, and it's about making sure that students graduate not only with a degree but with some real skills, right? Because companies training budgets are going down, so universities are looking at how can I get the alumni to really make sure students have those entrepreneurship skills and so on. Okay, so by now we know that mentoring is a two-way relationship. Both people benefit from it. The mentor benefits and the mentee benefits, and everybody talks about it actually develops people. Like, I mean, you mentioned you will not be who you are today or you, but what they actually miss is this thing called psychosocial support. When my student was with me and all the people that I work with, they know I am there for them. I'm not giving them some uh, complex physics formula, or I'm giving them money or anything. I'm just giving a little bit of my mind space. Hey, I'm there for you. This is what most HR leaders forget to recognize. Oh, they think, yeah, we have a mentoring program and it is for this, but they forget the fact that people have a sense of safety. They have a sense of belonging. They feel included. Those are seem soft to someone. If you go to the CFO, hey, what's the point? Hey, your retention numbers are very good, so you don't have to keep hiring people and spending millions and recruiting and re-recruiting and re-recruiting and training them, right? So this psychosocial support is a strong indicator for people that want to stay in a community or in a company. Right? We want to have that safety around us. So we see, for example, mentees, they have, when we do the survey, say what happened as a result of these years of mentorship, they always report, my overall pay increased, I got promoted, I got recognized, my skills around leadership improved. So lots of benefits like that. So what I found is when you're running mentoring programs, some of you are running mentoring programs, and this is something that Scott asked me to include. The most important thing that I found when you're doing these programs in these companies or non-profits or schools is you need an executive sponsor. Don't make it one more thing that a HR person does. I mean, I have nothing against human resource leaders. In fact, I don't even like the word human resource because human is not a resource. Oil is a resource. Coal is a resource. Human is a potential. When you think of a resource, recently I did a workshop on, hey, let's reframe our thinking from head count to heart count. How inhuman it is to say somebody, I want to reduce head count. It all comes from the ancient human time when we used to hunt people. We are not hunters anymore. So those words have to go away. Those they have to go away from our vocabulary. Our vocabulary, determines how we think, and how we think determines how we act, right? So having someone to an executive sponsor who's all about growing people, because mentoring is the means and not the end. The end is growth. The end is retention. End is higher productivity, higher sales, higher revenue. The process is mentoring. Again, I use the example of exercise. Exercise is the means and not the end. Lowering your cholesterol, or lowering your weight, or increasing your capacity. Those are the outcomes. So mentoring, addresses certain outcomes. So the executive sponsor should stand by very, very strongly. And um, I also do a lot of program design, because that's very important. Don't think, say, hey, we launched a mentoring program, all of you just meet and do something. That never happens. So you have to really make sure, start with the why that Simon talks about. Have very clear KPIs and success criteria, and train them. This was the mistake I made early on, that I thought everybody should know because I know it. I mean, not that I know it enough. I know some of it, but I wrote the book because that way there's a checklist. How to be a good listener, how to have compassion, how to not be judgmental. There's a whole thing that I list in the book, and also incentives, because people in the company will not do if it doesn't mean something to them. So we actually connect the mentoring to their internal performance reviews, so it means something to them. And we should make sure that the mentoring is not just they're having a nice chit chat. It should align with an objective. If it is, if you want to develop, for example, women leaders, if you want to develop minorities, or integrate any new hires, the conversation should be along those lines. And most importantly, you should also market it. When the success story, because most people think it's very hard for people, especially millennials, think I don't need a mentor. But I tell them, in fact, one of my tweets is, having a mentor is like an iPhone. None of us missed it. Some of the young people may not realize it, but all of us lived without an iPhone forever, right? I traveled all across the country without a GPS. But today we cannot imagine a life without an iPhone or without GPS. Having a mentor is like that. Having somebody who you can call and have a conversation and be vulnerable, if need be, cry. It's perfectly okay. Perfectly okay to be vulnerable, because we are not designed to do everything on our own. One of my tweets is, we come alone, we leave alone, but we don't have to do things alone. Surround yourself with people. In fact, there's a chapter in my book called Build Your Own Personal Board of Mentors. Somebody for your life, somebody for your academics, somebody for your money, somebody for relationships. Nothing wrong with it. Nobody said you do it on your own. So, with that, I'm going to be spending the last few minutes on a specific program that I've been asked to present, which has relevance for San Francisco. It is especially around this homelessness, which we are seeing a lot nowadays. And this project is in partnership with ASBA, Arizona Small Business Association, in Arizona. So this program is a training and mentorship program. Okay, and it is aimed at essentially people from underrepresented communities. For the last 2 years, we've been focusing on justice impacted folks, because the grant that Arizona government gave was to reduce what is called recidivism. Arizona has 38% recidivism. It adds a lot extra cost to the government and to society. So that's the grant we give, but the program can be deployed. So we have different components of this team. The Arizona Small Business Group, there are about 3,000 small businesses. Because they are involved in small businesses for 50 years, Arizona government said, hey, can you help these people essentially become business owners? And we provide the mentorship and the ongoing guidance, and we have other consultants providing training. And so there are 4 components in this program, and which is what we would be happy to bring to San Francisco. It is a component of mentorship, live training, where we have education sessions by experts, and online learning, because some of the people may not be able to come every time. So we gave them small iPads so that they can actually access our online library. And we also gave them scholarships as part of the grant, so they can start a business, or because they are all, especially the community that we are serving, they came out of jail. So some of them are still in parole. So it means a lot to them, even if you give them some money for having a lunch or a dinner. It is really, I don't know how many, none of us know what they go through and how grateful they are when we transform their lives. So the program is like this. We have an application process. We had over 150 applications just with very minimal digital marketing. And I believe there are 2 million like that in this country that don't get the support they need. They apply, and initially we thought everybody should come, but then we realized that some of them are not, they're not in the mental frame of mind to be in a program. So we evaluate their readiness, and then we admit them into the program. And then we have an onboarding process where we initially we thought, when we did the very first cohort, many of them didn't even know what email is. For the last 20 years, they have been inside, so they don't even know what an email is. So we had to create them email accounts, teach them this is the browser. So we had to do some basic training, and we are partnered with Google on all the basic modules. And then we recruit mentors. and we train the mentors. And um, and and it's amazing. We have very high retention of mentors because they just love the program. And then we conduct a lot of small business workshops. We offer courses on how to start a company, how to register, how to hire people, how to get your idea to the product state. We do all of that. And then we have ongoing one-on-one mentoring as well as group mentoring. Okay. And then we also give them we help them start an LLC or an S corp or a non-profit. And then we actually give them scholarships because nothing should stop them from actually becoming a business owner. And then we have an alumni support system. Once they graduate, we have a nice graduation party, just like a Stanford or a Berkeley would. We give them a nice gown and a badge. It's to elevate their confidence level, right? They feel so good, and we tell them now go, and if you need anything, we are here. So they become business owners from the point they are like totally vulnerable because they just came out of a foundation. Because foundations, are they can't keep them for a long time, and they do some very basic things. So we actually depend on the lot of foundations. So the way we recruit mentors is we have learned the impact of digital marketing. um, People want to know that we are real. Right? A lot of people say, "Why are you doing this? What's in it? What's the catch? It's free." So that doesn't. Yeah, we're all nice people. Don't worry. We will just do this. We have the right intentions, right? Because world is strange, and we also bring in a lot of role models. I have friends who have become incredibly successful speakers at YPO, graduate from Harvard, who were in prison before. So we actually bring them and say, look, this person did it, you can do it too. It happens in the Bay Area, right? We look at people like Sam Altman or others. Oh, they are great entrepreneurs. We all look up to them. So, so very important to have those role models and partners. So these are all the foundations that are plugged in, especially with the cohort we had. But it could be any foundations. Paul mentioned the many foundations here who are addressing homelessness. So they could be a source for identifying or potential mentees. And for mentors, again, we do digital marketing. We depend on a lot of networks. As for example, Showroom has been, very, very impactful for us. They're all HR executives, and they're all very people focused. SBA has provided some mentors. SBDC and of course SCO, that many of us know, has been there as a source of mentors. And our mentor retention is important because these are all volunteers. So we don't pay the mentors, but we pay them in other ways. We give them awards, and I have given the mentor talks, and we have sent experts who can be mentors to these mentors. So we give value in other ways so that they feel really good. So we have a very high retention rate. So if you look at what we have done since over the last 1.5 years, really is we have transformed about 60 lives. We have about 43 mentors, more than 300 sessions, and we developed a lot of courses in the process that is very specific to this vulnerable population. A lot of education sessions, a lot of events, because sometimes we bring them and see, and they feel so strong when they see people like them. And really, the last thing I have started is 25 new business have been started in Arizona, in Phoenix alone. We didn't even cross beyond Phoenix, you know, and 35 are fully employed. That means that they're earning, they have families, they have children, they're going to school, and what what gives us so much joy to our team? It is 100% women team, by the way, that runs this program. They're so passionate about it because you know basically before the program they were vulnerable individuals. Now they're part of society. They're renting apartments, they're earning, and they're paying taxes, not taking tax money. So in fact, Arizona government has engaged an economist to do the impact on the economy because w- from all the money that they are earning now from their businesses and jobs, they're now spending in groceries and transportation and movies. So we're doing an overall impact study right now. That study should be out next month. So lots of stories. He's talking about his coffee shop. She has a cleaning service, and so really, you know, their smiles, they give our team the energy. they're no longer looked up as, oh, they're scary or whatever. So this can be done. Again, I'll skip this. Um, so what really that I said I'll be more than happy to support is our experience of having gone through multiple cohorts of a highly vulnerable population. um, you know and even the technology, we have to make a lot of changes to make it very simple, make it available on a tablet, on the phone. And I think that a program with some modifications can be applied to address a challenge that makes us here. And we actually built it as a tuition model. So let's say some students want to go to Stanford or Berkeley or Santa Clara, how they can apply for funding. We have a model like that. So any of you could be giving financial aid for. We have more than 200 mentees in waiting list, but we just don't have the resources. So any of you can say, oh, I'll fund 2 students or 3 students, and we can work out the models. So we made it like a tuition model with a 6-month graduation and an alumni. Okay. And so happy to bring all that expertise and our commitment to support the San Francisco challenge. And I actually met this person. I don't know how many of you recognize Chris Gardner's name in Pursuit of Happiness movie. It's actually yeah, Will Smith is the actor, but it's the story of Mr. Chris Gardner. He was homeless and he's now a incredible investment banker. And I actually met him, and we actually launched a major program with AARP called Life Reimagined in LA Convention Center. So he and I did it together, and so I was just thinking, San Francisco, Chris Gardner would be a great person to come and give hope. That's what we did in Arizona. We give hope. So thank you. I can take a few questions, and then I have some homework for you. Yeah.
Two things. First of all, I want to talk to you after the presentation because I have a school situation where your mentoring program I can see would fit in perfectly. So
Thank
I
you.
want to talk about that.
Absolutely.
But my experience with working with homeless people is, in general, and other people's experience may be different, is that they're not looking for to be mentees. That they're living in a way that they're pretty much, at least on the surface, pretty happy with, and not ready to take on any kind of commitment, even though, say, in my mind or other people's minds, that there's a lot that could be offered them. So I saw you had an application process with your mentee program in Arizona. So I would like you to talk about that specifically in relation to developing a mentee program for people that are homeless in San Francisco.
Thank you. Your name?
Peter.
Peter. Yeah, thank you, Peter. Excellent question. In fact, that's the crux of this whole thing. It's like even students. If a student doesn't want to learn, you know how they say you can take a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink. That it's very similar. So we thought, hey, these people have no other place to go. Why are they not committing to our program? So that's why we had to, in the first cohort, we took everybody who came in, and it was a disaster because they were not committed. They were saying, why are these guys doing this? I'm getting these food coupons, and our government makes it so convenient, so they don't want to get away from the convenient system. So it was hard, and that's why we don't take in everybody, because we don't have the time to deal with those kind of aspects. So we tell them, go back to the foundation and continue there. Now what's happening is, after a few cohorts, our enrollment, our interest to admission is increasing, because now they say this is real. Like, I mean, I'm part of Sunday school, where we go and give meals to a lot of homeless people in San Jose. And many of them are just happy with the way they are, right? But when they see other people being transformed, we hope that will inspire them to say, okay, this is real. There is a better way. There's a better way to do it. So that aspect is what we are most concerned about, where we need to spend time, and not everybody would be interested, which is okay. Even if I get 10% off the streets, I think we would have done a lot of good. Thank you for asking.
So how many people, how long did it take and how many people did it take to get that organization set up before you could start taking on mentees and start exploring ways to help people jump in?
In terms of our staff,
Yes.
yeah, that's interesting. The question, you might think we have a large staff. We are like four people, four women, super inspired, super excited about it. A couple of them from ASPA, a couple from MentorCloud and consultants. I would say 6 to 7, in terms of full-time equivalent, who handles mentorship. And of course, we have more than 50 mentors. So our staff is about 6 people. So it is not at all. It doesn't take a lot of time, a lot of staff, but it took a lot of. All these 6 people now are fully trained. They know how to recruit, how to evaluate, how to assess them, how to train them, and how to train the mentors. So that module is now ready.
So do you have any of the business owners now kind of working towards becoming mentors for the next generation mentees? Do you have lived experience individuals now reaching out to their former communities and inspiring them to come on?
That's an excellent question. In fact, I think two of our mentors have been mentees in the last cohort, and we always hear, for example, hey, I want to bring my buddy, because they have their own circles. But you need one or two outliers to kind of shine, and then other people will come. So it is happening. That word of mouth is happening actually.
So do you have any advice? We have a mentorship DAO that's getting started. What would be the first steps or the best thing to get started to kind of creating that environment or creating that momentum? What would be the first best steps for us as we kind of get that structure for the mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I'm actually going to meet, I think Siobhan and Stefan this after this meeting. I will learn more, but I think you have the intention, which is the first step. The intention to actually have a DAO around mentorship gives me a lot of excitement and hope. And of course, first thing is why we are doing it. I would say, I was telling Scott, let us very, very be, because we can't solve the entire problem, right? There's homelessness is a very multifaceted challenge. So we really need to understand, you know, pick our sample well. That's what I would say. Intention, and pick our sample, the first sample well, and we can show success.
That's awesome. Anybody else have any questions? Right here, a question.
Hi, Ravi. I actually met you about like 10 or 12 years ago in a social event. I don't know if it's
Oh, really? What's your
before
name?
Satish.
Satish. Okay.
I actually don't remember. I don't remember the context, but we'll talk afterwards. But what was interesting from then to now, I think you're formulating your thoughts, and you're connecting. Actually, I looked up when we actually connected.
Oh, really?
So interesting is since then to now, I feel like, pardon me, for Uberizing everything, but I feel like wisdom has become very transactional. But so many platforms are launched in the last 3 to 5 years where you're like, oh, 30 minutes, $2,500, whatever, right? So my question really is, are you finding it harder now to bring on like name brands or people who are like have some clout, like I saw Sam Altman for probably $5,000, and some AI entrepreneur would pay that for a minute, right? So like, how do you continue to like foster high quality mentors, especially if it's very industry specific or entrepreneur specific?
Excellent question. First of all, I'm glad you remembered. I'm sure if you talk a few, 2 minutes, we'll figure it
We
out.
did.
Yeah. So my original intent was to make it sort of an open technology, like a LinkedIn for growth, was my vision at that time. But very soon I realized people don't mentor anybody at random. So it has to be B2B. So we got selected by 500 startups. So that was a turning point for me to think, okay, make it an enterprise B2B platform where there is affinity, because I wouldn't mentor somebody off the street just like that unless I make a connection, right? So that's why we made a B2B. these platforms like Intro and so many other platforms like Leak, I think they're all great. They address a certain need where I need a quick sort of speed mentoring session, but it does not build relationships. I am trying to address the problem of loneliness in the companies, engagement, productivity. So since I don't have the problem of the e-commerce transaction, I'm creating communities within a company. So I mean, I'm talking to Nvidia, some really large brands who are all figuring out in this post-pandemic era, how do you bring our humans together? Right? Even in just last week, there was a talk by Pope. He said, you know, the decision making should be left to humans. AI should only be assisting us, but it cannot be deciding for us. So it's gone to that level that Pope is talking about AI versus hi. I always say, why AI when you can say hi? Human intelligence. Let's tap into the human intelligence in companies. And we have so many name brands coming to us. There is no commerce involved. I never believed in the commerce model. It's like, it's like Uberization, right? You hire somebody, that seems too transactional. That's not that's not mentoring, you know. That's advice for money.
Well, Ravi, I want to thank you for coming in here and sharing with us. It's been amazing. We do have some copies of the books. I saw some people